Hey guys, let's talk about sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is terrifying. There's no doubt about that. Wait, what? You don't know what sleep paralysis is? Okay, I'm putting a link in the description below where I go over exactly that topic, so make sure you check that out before you watch this video. Sleep paralysis is this terrifying phenomenon where you wake up in the middle of the night and you are fully paralyzed and you can't move a muscle and you are stuck there. And if you think that's not scary enough, some people actually experience hallucinations when they're in this sleep paralysis mode. And this is thought to be an explanation for a lot of those cases of people saying they got abducted by aliens, or they had some sort of demonic attack on them, or some other sort of paranormal activity that happened to them. So believe it or not, I used to have sleep paralysis every single day. And it got so bad to the point where I was even scared to go to sleep. So there is a lot that is unknown still about sleep paralysis. But we do have some associations, so I'm going to start with what I know I was doing wrong when I used to have sleep paralysis every single day. So at the time, I was a high schooler, so I had a lot of stress, as you can imagine, but also my sleep schedule was terrible. I didn't really sleep much. I had probably slept about only 3 hours a day, because the rest of the time I was either studying or doing something that wasn't productive. I also didn't have a consistent sleep schedule. During the weekdays, I would sleep maybe from like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then on the weekends, I would sleep from like 3 a.m. to like noon. So my sleep schedule was very sporadic. I also didn't have a consistent eating schedule. This is something that changed every single day. Some days I would eat breakfast. Other days I would wake up late and I would completely miss breakfast. Some days I would skip meals. On the weekends, my eating schedule was completely different. So that was also different. I also loved to look at my phone right before I went to bed. So I was basically exposed to this light, and then it would shut off and it would be time to go to sleep. First of all of the things that I just mentioned are not good for healthy sleep. So I'm also going to list a few other things that are known to be associated with sleep paralysis, but I didn't really get involved with this, or I didn't really have any of these conditions. Sleep paralysis is also associated with sleep disorders like narcolepsy. It's also associated with mental conditions like PTSD or recovery from some sort of traumatic event. And it's also associated with taking medications like ADHD medication, for example. And it's also associated with heart problems. So generally, people who are not as healthy are more likely to have sleep paralysis. And some people used to think that your age or your sex used to play a factor, but some studies are actually showing that that doesn't really play a role. So what did I start doing to stop having this sleep paralysis every single day and start having a normal, healthy sleep schedule again? Well, it's basically the exact opposite of the other stuff I mentioned earlier. I started going to bed at around the same time. I started waking up at around the same time every day. And I also started eating at around the same time every single day. All these things are basically keeping my body in a consistent schedule. Now, these things are very important for our circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm is basically our body's internal clock. And this clock is basically what tells us when it's time to go to sleep and when it's time to wake up. And also what I noticed when I started controlling my circadian rhythm more was that my stress levels went down a ton. I was able to study a lot easier. I didn't have this constant stress on my mind, and everything just felt a lot easier. I also started improving the amount of sleep that I get. So I used to sleep about 3 hours a night. Now I try to get between 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and that has done wonders for me. And the last thing I did was I stopped looking at my phone right before I went to sleep. So I used to look at my phone and lay in bed, and when it was time to go to sleep, I would just turn it off and then roll over. But now I have a separate stand where I keep my phone, and I'm not exposing my body to any light, so that way I can get my body in that sleep mode. Now, all of these changes didn't really happen overnight, and some of them were kind of forced, because once I got into college and dental school, I was kind of forced to have more of a schedule, because one, I got older, so I couldn't really handle 3 hours of sleep anymore. And then that forced me to be a little more productive throughout the day, and that forced me to time my meals out correctly, that forced me to sleep at a certain time and wake up at a certain time. And all of those things led me to now, where my schedule is pretty consistent. But now I barely ever get sleep paralysis. I'm not going to say I never get it, because once in a blue moon, like very rarely, I will still wake up and have sleep paralysis, but it's really not that severe compared to what it used to be. And at this point, I've kind of gotten used to it if it does happen. And what's interesting is they actually did some research on different things you can do with your circadian rhythm that will help sleep paralysis. So one thing that they found is people who eat breakfast every single day are less likely to have sleep paralysis. And this is just showing that the timings of our meals can affect the way that we sleep. And these timings of our meals can also affect our circadian rhythm, so it makes sense. I really don't think it's the breakfast that's preventing the sleep paralysis. I think it's the timing and keeping it consistent every day that's keeping our circadian rhythm in check, and that's preventing the sleep paralysis. And something else that's really interesting is some people actually reported a positive experience to their sleep paralysis. So it's not always a bad thing when it happens to someone. This is really interesting to look into, and we may even be able to find in the future some ways to create more positive experiences and get rid of those bad experiences of sleep paralysis. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below. I will see you in the next video.